Every disappearance has a final moment of certainty. A last sighting, a last call, a last place someone was known to be. The last known tells real true crime cases using only the facts.
Today, we are heading into the dark.
Mm.
And I don't just mean the metaphorical dark of a cold case, though. We are certainly doing that. I mean the literal, physical, suffocating darkness of a winter night in northern New Hampshire.
It's a darkness that actually plays a massive role in the story we're covering today. I mean, if you don't understand the specific physics of the light that night, you can't really understand the case at all.
Right.
It's not just a backdrop, it's a character.
Exactly. We are talking, of course, about the disappearance of Maura Murray, February 9th, 2004, Route 112 in Woodsville, New Hampshire. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've heard the name.
Oh, yeah?
You've probably seen the missing posters online, the blue background, that smile. Maybe you've even gone down a few Reddit rabbit holes yourself. It is kind of the internet's favorite mystery.
It is arguably the most discussed disappearance of the internet age. There are forums, blogs, podcasts, entire documentaries. But there is a downside to that popularity.
Right. The game of telephone effect?
Precisely, yeah. When a case becomes an internet legend, the rumors, they start to get louder than the facts. The emotional narrative, the spooky ghost story, it just takes over the environmental reality. People start seeing patterns that aren't there and, ignoring the hard data that is.
So our mission today is a little different. We are not here to tell a ghost story.
No.
We aren't going to indulge in wild conspiracy theories about tandem drivers and secret lives unless the data absolutely forces us there. We are stripping this down to the studs.
We're going to look at the environmental facts, the lighting, the snowpack, the vegetation.
Okay.
We're going to look at the specific administrative records that are currently being fought over in court. And we're going to look at the psychology of that, 10-minute window where everything changed.
And we have a stack of fascinating sources today that really help us do this. We've got a detailed breakdown from a local resident who actually lives on Route 112, giving us a sensory perspective you just can't get from staring at Google Maps.
Which is so important.
And we have legal pleadings from a lawsuit filed against the Attorney General of New Hampshire, which, let me tell you, is a gold mine of information about what evidence is being kept secret.
And we have a forensic analysis of the timeline and the astronomical conditions. That sounds dry, I know, but I promise you it is the key to unlocking the whole scene.
Okay, so let's set that scene. It's February 9, 2004. Maura Murray, a 21-year-old nursing student at UMass Amherst, has driven north. She spins out her car on a sharp curve on Route 112 in Woodsville. And then in a window of about 7 to 10 minutes, she vanishes. But let's pause on the vanishing part and look at the where.
Right. One of our most valuable sources is a detailed account from someone who lives right there on Route 112. And they emphasize something that gets lost in the retelling. They describe the darkness there as startling.
Startling. That's such a specific, strong word for just nighttime?
It is. But think about where most of us live.
Yeah.
Even in the suburbs or rural areas near towns, you have light pollution. You have street lights. You have the ambient orange glow of the city on the horizon reflecting off the clouds. You have porch lights from neighbors.
Right. If I walk out of my backyard at midnight, I can still see the outline of the trees. I can see my hand in front of my face.
On Route 112, you have none of that. This local resident describes it as a suffocating darkness. It's not just that you can't see well, it's that the blackness feels solid.
Wow.
There are no streetlights, the houses are few and far between, and they are set back from the road, often blocked by trees.
So it's a tunnel. You are in a tunnel of trees.
Exactly. And there's a specific misconception about that night that I found really interesting in the source material. I see this online constantly. People say, well, there was a near full moon that night, there was snow on the ground, the moonlight reflecting off the snow would have made it bright enough to see.
It sounds logical. I mean, we've all seen those winter nights where the moon makes everything look like twilight.
It is a classic example of a fact that is technically true but contextually false. Yes, if you look at the calendar, the moon was in a waxing gibbous phase, about 86% full. If that moon was high in the sky, it would be a flashlight. It would be incredibly bright. But if you look at the astronomical data provided in our analysis, specifically for that latitude and longitude on February 9th, the moon did not rise until 8:56 p.m.
Wait, 8:56 p.m.?
Correct. nearly 9:00 p.m.
And the accident happened around 7:30 p.m.
7:27 p.m. is the best estimate we have.
So the moon wasn't even up yet.
It was completely below the horizon. It was on the other side of the planet, effectively.
Oh my gosh.
So at the moment Maura Murray crashed her car and stepped out onto that road, there was zero moonlight.
That changes the picture completely. It's not a winter wonderland scene with silvery light on the snow. It's a void.
It is absolute pitch black. The only light would have been her headlights until she turned them off or they died, and the very faint, distant glow from the few houses down the road. But essentially, she is standing in a sensory deprivation tank.
And the silence. The source mentions the silence.
Yeah. Snow dampens sound. If you've ever been in deep snow, you know it just absorbs noise. So it's not just dark, it's dead silent. That level of isolation triggers a primal physiological response.
It's terrifying. And that brings us to the woods. I feel like in every conversation about this case, specifically from people who aren't locals, the theory is, oh, she was drinking, she panicked, she ran into the woods to hide from the cops, and she succumbed to the elements.
Right.
It's the Occam's razor theory, right? The simplest explanation.
It is the simplest explanation, usually. But our sources really push back against this, specifically based on the terrain. This isn't a manicured park. This isn't even the kind of open forest you might find in the Midwest or parts of the South where the trees are all spaced out.
The source calls it a fortified forest wall.
That's the phrase that stuck out to me, too. This is new growth forest.
Yeah.
It's dense, it's messy, it's filled with underbrush, thorns, brambles, and these impenetrable rows of saplings.
Okay.
And on this specific night, there was 1 to 2 feet of snow on the ground.
Okay, let's play this out. Imagine you are Maura. You are wearing jeans and a coat. You don't have snowshoes. You don't have a flashlight. It is pitch black because the moon is down. And you decide to run into the woods.
You are immediately confronting what the source calls the spiderweb effect.
The spiderweb effect? What's that?
Think about walking into a spiderweb in the dark. You flail, you panic. Now imagine the spiderweb is made of wood.
Oh.
You are walking into branches that are whipping you in the face. Thorns are catching your clothes. You are tripping over deadfall, hidden under 2 feet of snow.
You aren't running. You're battling the terrain.
You are hacking your way through. Yeah. It is physically nearly impossible to do quickly or silently. You would be snapping branches, tearing clothes, and falling down constantly.
And the local source makes a compelling point. Locals know better. Maura grew up in New England. She was a hiker. She spent time in the White Mountains. She would know that entering those woods at night, in deep snow, without gear,
it's basically suicide.
It's just not something you do.
It's a fortified wall. It repels you. You don't just slip into it.
And that leads us to the physical evidence, or the lack thereof, the search.
Exactly. This is the hard data point. There were no footprints found leaving the roadway. Now, I know people argue about this endlessly. They say, oh, the search wasn't good enough, or the wind blew the tracks away.
But we are talking about 2 feet of snow.
If a human being plunges into 2 feet of snow and bushwhacks through dense forest, they leave a trench.
Yeah.
They leave the trail of broken branches and disturbed snow that a blind man could find. It's not subtle.
The source mentions that. It says, it would have made as much sense to say she walked off into the sea.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
The lack of footprints leaving the roadway is a primary data point we cannot ignore. If the snow on the road was clear, sure, she could walk on the road. But to leave the road, she'd have to break the snowbank.
So let's look at the logic here. If she didn't evaporate and she didn't run into the woods because the woods were an impenetrable wall of darkness and thorns, she had to stay on the hard surface. She had to stay on the road.
Or get into a vehicle.
Which brings us to the crash site itself. Let's reconstruct this critical window. It's roughly 7:27 p.m. to 7:04 p.m. The car spins out. It ends up facing the wrong way, westbound in the eastbound lane.
Yeah.
What's the scene inside the car?
It's chaotic. We know there was wine involved. There was a box of Franzia wine, and the source mentions a soda bottle with red wine residue in it.
Okay.
There was red liquid splashed on the interior, on the ceiling, the doors. It was a mess.
So we have a young woman. The airbags have deployed, which is a violent event in itself. It's loud. It smells like chemicals. She's possibly been drinking. The car is dead. And now she's standing in that startling darkness.
And she is not entirely alone, but she's isolated. We have 3 sets of eyes on the scene, or at least partial eyes.
Right.
We have the Westmans watching from their house across the street. We have the Marotts, neighbors who saw lights and a commotion at the trunk. And we have the bus driver, Butch Atwood.
We're going to get to Butch in a minute because he is a huge part of this. But I want to talk about the spotlight theory from our source material. This fascinated me because it uses the darkness to explain the visibility.
This is a brilliant bit of analysis regarding the lighting conditions.
Yeah.
Because it was so dark, remember, no moon, no streetlights, any light source doesn't just provide illumination, it becomes a beacon.
A spotlight in a sea of blackness.
Precisely. Think of a lighthouse.
Yeah.
If a car drives down that road, its headlights cut through the dark for hundreds of yards. You would see the beams sweeping across the trees long before the car arrives.
And if a car stops.
If a car stops, the brake lights engage. In absolute darkness, red brake lights against white snowbanks create a massive red glow.
Oh, yeah.
It illuminates the trees, the road, the scene. It's a light show.
So the theory is, if someone stopped to abduct her, or even just to pick her up, it wouldn't have been a stealthy operation.
It would have been highly visible. Now, the sources point out there's a small void in the witness's line of sight. There's a stretch of road, maybe 200 to 300 feet, that is partially obscured from the Westminster window and the Atwood's house by trees or the angle of the road.
A blind spot.
A physical blind spot, yes. But even in that blind spot, a stopped car casts a glow. Light reflects off snow. It bounces. So the idea that a car could pull up, interact with her, get her inside, and drive away without the Westmans or the Marats noticing a shift in the lighting conditions, it's possible. But the window is incredibly tight.
We are talking about a window of roughly 7 to 10 minutes, right?
Well, the total window is a bit longer. From crash to police arrival is 7:27 p.m. to 7:46 p.m. when the first officer, Cecil Smith, arrives.
Okay.
But really, the critical window, the time she's alone, is smaller because Butch Atwood spoke to her, drove to his house, and called 911. So she's alone on that road for maybe 5 to 7 minutes, tops.
Let's look at her options. The source analyzes the avenues of escape. If she's standing there, freezing, panic setting in, where can she go?
She has 4 choices. 1,
Right.
go west.
Yeah.
It's back the way she came. That leads towards cell service and civilization.
That's right.
2, go east. That heads deeper into the mountains, past the crash site. 3, Old Peters Road. This is a Class 6 dirt road nearby. Or 4, into the woods.
We've basically ruled out the woods.
Logically, yes. The fortified wall argument makes that highly, highly unlikely.
So, west or east?
This is where we have to profile the mindset. A rational person stays with the car.
Right.
That's what you're taught.
Yep. Stay with the vehicle.
But Maura didn't stay.
Yeah.
Why? The wine, the potential DUI. She's had a rough week. We'll get to that. And she likely wants to avoid the police at all costs.
So going west back toward town might feel like walking toward the police response.
Exactly. If she thinks the police are coming from the west, she might go east. But east goes up in elevation. It gets colder. It goes toward the Wildwood campground, which is desolate in winter. It's walking into the nothingness.
And Old Peters Road. Can you explain what a Class 6 road is for people who aren't from New England?
Sure. A Class 6 road is basically an unmaintained public road. The town doesn't plow it, usually, though the source says this one was plowed but icy.
So it's not a real road.
Not really. It's not a thoroughfare. It's dark. It's narrow. Unless you are a local who knows exactly where it goes, it looks like a dead end or a farm road.
So would a college student from Massachusetts turn down a dark, icy dirt road in the middle of nowhere?
It seems unlikely unless she was trying to hide immediately. But again, where does it go? It doesn't solve her problem. It just puts her on a different dark road.
So we have a scared young woman, possibly intoxicated, definitely filled with adrenaline. She rejects the rational choice of waiting for help. She rejects the safe choice of walking toward town. That leaves disappearing into the dark.
Or getting into a vehicle. Which brings us back to the most controversial figure in this case, the bus driver.
Butch Atwood. For years, people have pointed the finger at him. He was the last known person to speak to her. And I think we have to address the elephant in the room. His appearance.
It's the casting director bias.
Yes.
Butch was a very large man. He lived in a somewhat rundown house. He drove a school bus. If you were casting a movie about a roadside abduction, you might cast someone who looks like Butch.
It fits the TV trope.
It does. But our sources really go to bat for Butch here, using logic rather than emotion. They dismantle the Butch did it theory by looking at his specific actions. Let's look at the interaction.
Okay.
He stops his bus. He opens the door. He asks if she needs help,
And she says no. She says, I called AAA.
which was a lie or a bluff. Butch knew there was no cell service in that spot. It's a dead zone.
Right.
He tells her that. He says, you can't call from here. She still refuses. She pleads with him not to call the police.
She wants to handle it herself.
Right. So what does Butch do? Does he force her onto the bus? Does he grab her? No. He respects her wishes. He drives 500 feet to his house, which is within sight of the crash, essentially. He backs his bus into his driveway, goes inside, and calls 911.
And that action right there, the phone call, is the linchpin of the argument in our source material.
The source calls it the serial killer university argument. It's a bit sarcastic, but the logic is sound.
Okay.
If you have just kidnapped or killed a young woman on the side of the road, or if you are planning to go back and get her, do you immediately go home and call the police to report that she is there?
It seems completely counterintuitive. You'd want to delay the police response. You'd want to buy yourself time.
Precisely. By calling 911, Butch is effectively starting a stopwatch. He is inviting the police to the scene immediately. He is putting himself on the record as being there.
Yeah.
That contradicts the behavior of someone trying to hide a crime in that exact moment. A killer wants darkness and time. Butch turned on the lights and called the cops.
But people get hung up on the polygraph. Butch failed 2 polygraphs. That is a fact, and to a lot of people that looks like a smoking gun.
It looks bad to the layperson. We watch cop shows where the suspect sweats and the needle goes crazy and everyone says, he's lying.
Right.
But to an expert, or to the courts, a failed polygraph means very little.
Why is that?
Our source dives into this. Polygraphs do not measure truth. There is no lie buzzer inside the human body. They measure physiological stress, heart rate, blood pressure, sweating, respiration.
And Butch wasn't exactly the picture of health.
He was a morbidly obese man with significant documented health issues. He had heart problems. He had breathing issues. Now imagine putting that man in a police interrogation room. Hook him up to wires. Accuse him of knowing where a missing girl is.
His heart rate is going to be through the roof before they even ask the first question.
Exactly. His baseline stress level is going to be high. If you have heart issues or blood pressure issues, the machine is going to read deception simply because your body is working hard to keep you alive.
Wow.
The source calls reliance on polygraphs garbage science. And legally, they are right. They are inadmissible in court for a reason. They are interrogation props, not scientific instruments.
So if we take Butch out of the equation as a suspect, because logic says he wouldn't call 911 if he was guilty, and science says the polygraph is unreliable, he becomes just a witness. And his testimony is that she was cold, shivering, but coherent. She didn't want help.
She wanted to handle it herself. She was trying to preserve her life, her nursing school status, her freedom from a DUI. She was in damage control mode, not survival mode.
And then there's the tandem driver theory, the idea that she was driving with a friend following her in a separate car.
The sources mention this, but mostly to debunk it. It's a popular theory because it solves the how did she leave problem. She just hopped in the friend's car.
But the sensory data argues against it.
Correct. If there was a tandem driver, where were they? Why didn't Butch see another car? Why didn't the Westman see another car waiting? And if the tandem driver pulled up after the crash to pick her up, we are back to the spotlight theory.
A second car stopping, doors opening and closing.
It creates noise. It creates light. Car doors slamming in the silence of winter sound like gunshots.
Yeah.
The sources suggest that a tandem driver operation would have been noticed.
And the tow truck theory. She mentioned AAA. Maybe a rogue tow truck came.
A tow truck is even worse for stealth. It's loud. It has a diesel engine. It usually has amber flashing lights on the roof.
Right.
In the silence of a winter night on Route 112, a tow truck would sound like a tank coming down the road. No one heard that.
So the environment tells us she likely didn't run into the woods. The logic tells us Butch probably didn't take her. The witnesses tell us no loud tow truck came. That leaves us with a very quiet, very quick disappearance into a passing vehicle, or a walk into the darkness that ended somewhere we haven't found yet.
And to understand why she might have walked or why she might have been vulnerable to a stranger offering a ride, we have to look at her mindset. Because there are a lot of myths about what happened in the days leading up to this crash.
Out of the myths. This case is full of them. Let's unpack the breakdown at work.
This is a big one. The story goes that on Thursday night, days before she disappeared, Maura had a catatonic breakdown while working her security desk job at UMass. She was staring at a wall, unresponsive, saying, "My sister."
And the rumor has always been that she got a phone call at the desk on the landline that triggered this.
Right. And people have spent years trying to find out who called the security desk landline. Was it a stalker? Was it a threat?
Sure.
But our source, which analyzes the phone records and police statements, corrects this. The call that upset her didn't come to the work landline.
It came to her cell phone.
It came to her cell phone. And we know who it was. It was her sister, Kathleen.
Okay, so she talks to Kathleen on her cell, gets upset, and then is found in this state. But where does the confusion come from? There's this phrase in the police reports about someone having moved on.
This is where internet sleuthing can go wrong. Earlier reports said police couldn't trace a call because the person had moved on. People assumed this referred to the mystery caller who caused the breakdown.
Right.
They thought, oh, the suspect moved on, they fled.
Like a suspect who disappeared.
Exactly. But the source clarifies this. That comment about moving on referred to a completely different call found in her records. A call to a UMass number belonging to a student named Aaron Murphy.
Who is Aaron Murphy?
Just another student. The detail was mundane. Aaron Murphy had moved out of that dorm room, so the number was a dead end. The moved on comment was about a student changing dorms, not a suspect fleeing the state.
So two separate events, the breakdown and a dead-end phone number, got conflated into one big mystery.
Correct. The breakdown was likely about her sister's struggles. Kathleen had relapsed with alcohol and left rehab. It wasn't a sinister threat. It was family tragedy.
But there is another call that gets overlooked. A call with her boyfriend, Bill Rausch.
Yes. Thursday night. Around midnight. A 7-minute call.
The source mentions this is often overshadowed by the sister call, but 7 minutes is a long time.
It is, and we don't know the content of that call. But we know Maura was in a fragile state. She had the breakdown. She crashed her dad's car on Saturday night.
Oh, yeah.
Another huge stressor, totaling a vehicle just days before she disappeared. And then on Monday, she packs up and leaves.
And there's one detail about the car that always weirds people out. The rag in the tailpipe.
Ah, yes. When police found the Saturn on Route 112, there was a rag stuffed into the exhaust pipe.
Which sounds like sabotage, or a signal, or something a killer would do to stall the car.
Sounds like a movie plot. Stall the car so I can grab her? But the source provides the context from her family. Maura's father, Fred Murray, told her to do it.
Why would her dad tell her to stuff a rag in the tailpipe?
Because the car was a junker. It was smoking. It was blowing white smoke.
Okay.
Fred advised her that putting a rag in the tailpipe might dampen the smoke or the noise so she wouldn't get pulled over by the police.
It was a makeshift mechanics trick.
A Band-Aid fix. It speaks to the state of the car. It was failing, and her fear of getting stopped by police doesn't speak to foul play. But to the uninitiated, finding a rag in a tailpipe looks incredibly suspicious.
It's another example of how a mundane fact becomes sinister without context.
Context is everything. And, speaking of context, we need to talk about the current state of the investigation. Because while we are analyzing public facts, there is a war going on behind the scenes for the private ones.
This is the legal battle, Anderson v. Attorney General.
This is a crucial piece of the puzzle. A citizen researcher, Joseph Anderson, sued the state of New Hampshire to get access to the case file.
And looking at the legal pleadings in our source stack, the list of things the state is withholding is, honestly, it's staggering.
It is. We aren't just talking about a few officer notes. We are talking about physical evidence that could change how we see this case.
Let's list some of these, because you, the listeners, need to understand the scope. First up, photos of the car interior.
Specifically, photos showing the box of wine and the stains. Why does this matter? It confirms the drinking timeline. It confirms the mess inside the car.
Then there's the ATM video. Maura stopped in an ATM on the day she disappeared.
The state has video of this. We've never seen it.
And video from Liquors 44, where she bought the alcohol.
Also withheld?
And an email found in her dorm room, printed out, from Bill Rausch.
Now that is interesting. Why print an email in 2004? Was it a breakup email? A reconciliation? Evidence of something?
Who knows?
We don't know because the state won't release it.
And finally, the car inventory and the incident report from Officer Cecil Smith.
The primary documents of the investigation. Locked away.
So why? Why is the state fighting so hard, spending years in court to keep a 20-year-old ATM video secret?
Their argument, outlined in the pleadings, is fascinating. It's a chess match. Their primary argument is interference with enforcement proceedings.
Which means what, in plain English?
It means they consider this an active investigation. They state clearly in the court documents that they believe there is a reasonable possibility of criminal charges.
That is a huge statement.
It is the most important statement in the file. If the police thought Maura simply walked into the woods and died of exposure, a tragic accident, they would likely close the case. They would release the files to the family. Keeping it open and fighting this lawsuit implies they believe a crime happened.
They think someone did something to her.
They think there's a perpetrator to catch.
Yeah.
And this is where the strategy comes in. Releasing the ATM video or the car inventory might tip their hand. It's called holdback evidence.
Can you explain holdback evidence?
Sure. It's information that only the police and the killer know.
Okay.
For example, let's say the ATM video shows Maura was wearing a specific unique scarf that has never been mentioned in the press.
Okay.
If they interview a suspect 5 years from now, and the suspect says, "I never saw her," but then slips up and mentions, "Oh, I think I saw a girl in a red paisley scarf hitchhiking," the police have him. He knows a detail that wasn't public.
But if they release the video on YouTube...
Everyone knows about the scarf. The leverage is gone. The suspect can say, "Oh, I saw that on the news."
So they are hoarding these details, the liquor receipt, the email, the photos, as ammunition for a future interrogation.
Exactly. Or to prevent a suspect from fabricating an alibi. "Oh, I see the police know about the email, so I need to come up with a story about that email." If they don't know the police have it, they can't prepare a lie for it.
The second argument is invasion of privacy.
Which is standard. They argue that Maura and the witnesses have privacy rights that survive 20 years. They don't want to turn the file into fodder for internet sleuths, which, is understandable.
But that first argument, the active investigation, is the one that keeps me up at night. Because it suggests they aren't just sitting on their hands.
They suspect something very specific.
Yeah.
You don't keep a case active for 2 decades without a theory.
Let's talk about the sheer scale of this active investigation. One of our sources is a cold case investigative checklist. It gives us a glimpse into what a case like this actually looks like.
It's not a thin manila folder like you see on TV.
No.
The source mentions the Maura Murray file contains over 10,000 pages of documents.
10,000 pages. That is a massive amount of data.
Just searching the files responding to the lawsuit took the state 40 to 50 hours. That implies witness statements, tip lines, phone records, forensic reports, maps, and interviews. Just a mountain of information.
And the checklist mentions looking for a weak link.
This is a standard cold case tactic. You look for a suspect or a witness whose relationships have changed over time.
Like an ex-girlfriend.
Exactly. Maybe in 2004, a girlfriend provided an alibi for her boyfriend. She said, "He was with me all night." But now, 20 years later, they are divorced. Maybe she hates him now. Maybe she has kids and a conscience.
She becomes the weak link.
She becomes the weak link. So the police are likely sitting on these 10,000 pages, waiting for a relationship to fracture, waiting for a phone call.
And they're watching us.
What do you mean?
One of the details in the legal documents is a request for information saved from websleuths.com.
The internet forum, the message board.
Yes. The state searched their files for data saved from online forums. This implies that law enforcement has been monitoring or at least archiving the online discussions.
That is a chilling thought.
Right.
They know what the theories are. They know what the rumors are. They might even be looking for accidental confessions or slips in the comment sections.
It's a feedback loop. The public obsession feeds the investigation, and the secrecy of the investigation feeds the public obsession.
And somewhere in the middle of that loop is the truth.
So where does that leave us? We've stripped away the rumors. We know it was pitch black, no moon. We know the woods were a fortress that would have left evidence if breached. We know the timeline is tight minutes, really. We know the official myths about the phone calls were just misunderstandings.
And we know the state of New Hampshire is holding back a mountain of evidence because they believe a crime was committed.
It really changes how you view that night. It's not just a sad story of a girl lost in the snow.
Right.
It's a logic puzzle with missing pieces.
And the missing pieces are sitting in a file cabinet in Concord.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought. We spent a lot of time talking about the darkness of Route 112, the silence of the woods, the startling darkness. But there is another silence in this case.
The silence of the files.
Exactly. If the state is fighting this hard-spending taxpayer money, going to court, to keep us from seeing a video of Maura at an ATM or a list of what was in her car, what is in those documents?
If they are protecting a future prosecution, that means there is someone out there they want to prosecute. It implies hope.
And that means Maura didn't just vanish into the snow. Someone knows. And the police might know who that someone is.
It suggests the answers aren't in the woods. They are in the records. And perhaps in the memory of someone who is still walking around today.
Think about that the next time you see a rumor online. Look at the terrain. Look at the timeline. And ask yourself, what is the state protecting?
And who are they waiting for?
That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you next time. Stay curious.
And stay critical.
This was the last known. The facts are limited. The record ends where the answers disappear. Until more is known, This case remains unresolved.